So today I thought I'd show you how I go about creating some of the shapes and designs I make just by using shapes, either manipulated or welded or by removing parts of shapes. Now I know I've covered something similar to this in the past before. I did welding some simple shapes into flowers. But this time I thought I'd show you how you could take different shapes and weld them together. So the first ones here are really simple. I've just taken a circle, made two more circles, made them smaller, aligned them and welded them, and I got this shape. So I'll just do that quickly. So I went to the circle, hold my shift key down and bring the circle smaller, so that keeps it in proportion. Then I right click and duplicate, and then again I hold the shift key down and make this one smaller. Obviously you could do this all by using the properties and setting your measurements, but I'm just doing this by eye for now, and as it's only for a video, it's more the technique I'm showing you, not exactly how to make the cutting file. So we've got one there. While that one's selected, I'm going to right click and hit duplicate and put the other one there. Then I'm going to hold my shift key down and select this one. So I've got just these two selected. Edit, align, you can use top or bottom, it doesn't really make any difference. That just aligns those two circles together. And then select everything and hit weld. And that's your first shape. Okay, the next one, again, really simple, and this is what you get. So, rectangle, rotate it, find a triangle, place that on top. You might want to make it a bit shorter. And you can take another rectangle, hold the shift key down and rotate it. Drag it in to make it smaller. Select just those three and weld. And that's another shape. And then hold your shift key down to resize in proportion. The ice cream, again, just a really simple basic shape. I took a cone shape, held my shift key down and rotated it. Then grabbed a circle, held the shift key down to keep the size in proportion, placed one, while it was selected, duplicated it, placed another so it overlapped and overlapped here, then created another duplicate, then again another duplicate, put that one on top, select those and weld, and then again hold the shift key down and resize. This one, you can see the process of making this. So I'll show you how I did this. So I took a circle, I resized it by holding the shift key down, but again you can use the properties if that's what you want. I made a duplicate by right clicking and choosing duplicate and just spaced it out. Then I selected both and went to edit, align, and I used top, but you could use bottom, it doesn't really matter. And while they're still selected and they're now aligned perfectly level, I right click and hit group. Then I duplicate and then select all four, edit, align, I'll use left this time so these left edges line up. While I've just got those four selected, I'm going to right click and hit group. Then I just got a box and I placed it roughly with this blue dot here in the middle of this circle, and then just dragged it in so that these four dots on the corner of the square line up roughly with the centre of the circle. Now you need the box to be underneath, so I'm going to right click on the box and click send to back. Sometimes that doesn't always work, so if you don't get the result that you're hoping for, just either do the opposite, click on the other shape and put bring to front. because I've found sometimes in this Canvas software that the front and back doesn't always necessarily work. So as far as I want to see now, I want this box to be at the back, so we'll soon find out. I'm going to select everything. This time I'm going to hit subtract, and the result I want is that the circle is going to subtract this corner of this box. There you go, like that. So that's that. Then I duplicated that by right clicking, and then basically all as I did, in fact I'm going to just make another duplicate of that because I've just had another thought. So I squashed it down and dragged it out a bit and placed it there. Then I made another duplicate by right clicking, holding the shift key down and rotating. Select just those, edit, align, center and middle, so that puts them all in the middle both ways, and then weld, and that's another shape. Then I'm going to make it smaller just to give me some space on my page, holding the shift key down. So then this one you could, while it's selected, go to offset. We'll choose an outward and we'll make it 12 just for the sake of the video. That kind of gives you a frame. Select everything and hit subtract again. Right, so that's not right, so something's not right. So let's see what we've got on top. Okay, so we'll undo that. So the outside one is on top and it needs to be on the bottom. So we've got the outside selected, right click, center back, and hopefully the bigger one is at the back and the smaller one is at the front. And if we hit subtract this time we've got a frame. And if you want to double check, if you fill it with colour, it will always show you what would cut. So if this was a piece of black card, that's exactly what I would get. It would follow the outside line and this inside line, and I'd have that thin frame. So again, you could duplicate that, make it smaller and wider, rotate it, position it, edit, align, center and middle, and then you could weld and see what you get. And then if you go into remove fill, you'll get an idea of what you'll get. So that's another shape. So all these shapes are being made from other basic shapes, and the only two commands I've used so far are weld and subtract, and then obviously I've used the align, but the commands here under the weld, divide, remove, overlap and subtract, I've only used weld and subtract. So that's another one. Then for the butterfly, again I went to circles, and I'm only making these smaller on my page just to give me a bit more room. So I've got one circle, right click, duplicate, line these two up. I'm going to align them by either the top or bottom edge, it doesn't matter. While they're both selected, duplicate. Now to make these smaller together, I've got to group them. So while this pair is selected, I'm going to go group, then I can hold the shift key down and make these smaller, which will keep them in proportion. Then select all the four and weld. Now, the first time I did this, I got a little hole in the middle, so I'm going to undo that and see if I can recreate the hole. And I'll show you how I got rid of it. So there's four together, weld. Okay, and this time I've got a hole. So basically what I wanted here, I just wanted a complete shape without that hole. So I selected it, I went to outline, I chose outward only, and I just made it 0.08 bigger and said OK, and that gave me the shape without that hole in the middle, which I could then delete. And then I drew a circle, I sized it down by holding the shift key down, and then I just literally dragged it in and I positioned it over there until I got the kind of shape I was looking for. So I could cut the butterfly in one colour and this body bit in another and layer it up. Then for the jar, the mason jar, I went and got a rounded rectangle, which I think is that one. Held the shift key down and rotated it. Then I got an ordinary rectangle and I sized it down just by using the arrows until I was happy with the amount of overlap that I had. Something like that. Then I'm just going to move this to the side so you can see it better. If you double click, it exposes the nodes, and what I want, this top line, I want it to be slightly arced. So I've got to click on either of these top circles to select this line, because at the moment this one here is selected because you can see it's in turquoise. So if I click on that left node, it brings that one. So if I click on that, it's given me that. And then basically what you need to do, you come up here, and at the moment it says it's set to a straight line, which you can see it is. If you click on the up arrow and select curve, it gives you 2 extra nodes. And these nodes, if you click on one, it will allow you to start to bend the shape. And then if you click on the other one, to bring it up roughly level with that. When I click away, you'll see I've now got a bend. And that's what gave me the shape for my top. And then to give it what looks like a bit of shape, I chose a circle and I literally squashed it down and then made it smaller by holding the shift key down and kind of positioned it to give me the look I was after. And then if I fill this one in with a dark grey colour, I'll do the stroke and the fill, and then I select that one and choose the lightest grey colour, and I'll do a stroke and a fill so you can see. When I put that one over there now, it just gives it a little bit of dimension. So you could cut the bottom part in one colour, your lid in another, and a highlight there. So that's how I did that one. I'm going to right click and group, and then I can just make that smaller. So if you're looking to want to make a shape, just have a look at a shape and then try and visualize the outline of that shape and work out how it's made. And then what you can do, page is jumping around now, I'm just going to get rid of all of these because I don't need them. And then you can take it a step further. So you might want to start building boxes, and it's all the same principle. Get yourself a rectangle. I'm just going to rotate it first, and I'm just going to drag it out. And I'm going to make it 4 inches wide, just as a point of reference for me. So I'm going to untick maintain aspect ratio, and I'm just going to make that 4 and say OK. So it's about 7, just over 7.5 high and 4 wide now. Then I'm going to duplicate that, and then I'm going to rotate that one by holding the shift key so it's horizontal. Select both, edit, align, center and middle, so they both line up perfectly now. So if this was a box, I'm going to weld all this in a minute, but just to kind of visualize it, if it was welded, this middle bit wouldn't be here, so the cutter would follow this line all the way around here and you'd be left with a cross. But to make a box you need sides, so I'm going to choose this. You could draw these in with the node editing tool if you wanted. You know, you could click and drag and double click to weld, but we've already got a shape in here, so we might as well use it because it's easier. I'm going to rotate, going to make it smaller and just roughly position it. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see a bit better. And normally a flap on a box box, you don't want it to be the full width from here to here. You want to get rid of bulk. So I'm just going to drag this out a little bit. I want this to kind of roughly line up here at the top. And then I'm going to take this one in. And that's kind of giving me a flap. Then if I select that and duplicate it and go to Edit, Flip, Horizontal, I've now got my flap for my other side. Just going to come over here a little bit. Now what I want to do is I want to line this one and this one up. So I'm going to select one, hold the Shift key down and select the other and go Edit, Align. You can do top or bottom, it doesn't mind, and it matter, and it should have aligned those two flaps. While they're selected, I'm going to right click and hit group. Then while they're selected now as a group, I'm going to hit duplicate and I'm going to bring the duplicate down here. And I want to position these. Now, I'm not so sure. They're a group, aren't they? See, yeah. Okay, so they're right. But this one isn't right for some reason, and I don't know why. So I'm going to ungroup it. I'm going to overlap that one slightly there, and overlap that one slightly there. And then select this one again, and go to Edit, Align, Bottom. So they should line up now and make those a group. And then I'm just going to zoom back out. And that's kind of like your box shape. So I'm going to drag an imaginary box around everything now and go to Weld. Now you need to put your dotted lines in. So if you remember, I made this original rectangle 4 inches. So I'm going to come to the square, go to the properties and make it 4 inches. I'm going to put the maintain ratio back on. It's not going to do it now because I had it unticked. So I'll make it 4, then we'll lock it. So we've got a 4-inch square, which might be marginally too big. So we'll make this 3.90. I'm going to select everything and go to Edit, Align, Center and Middle. So that's put the square in the middle now, but that's a little bit too small. So I'm just going to hold my Shift key down and just drag out my box ever so slightly. Because this box in the middle is going to be the dash line, the fold line. So we want it to kind of line up with these lines. So I'm going to select that, go to Properties, select Cut Line, but then Dash. So that makes that a dash line. So that would be, this flap would fold here, here, here and here. So that gives you that. And then we need to put our fold lines in here. But if you look at this, when I welded these to here, it's not quite exactly on the corner, but it would probably be okay. But what you can do is double click, and then there'll be 2 nodes here. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but there's a node on top of a node. So if I click the bottom node, I can move it out of the way. And then if I select that node, I should be able to delete it. Yeah. And then there's 2 here. And on this side, it's the one, it's on top here. So if I select that node and hit delete, and then you can see that straighten that line out. So if I come down here and do the same, double click, and the node I want to get rid of is on top, so I can select that, and again there's another one and select that, and when I click off, you see I've got a perfectly straight line now. So I'm going to zoom out. Now you need to draw your dashed lines in for your fold, and I'm just going to group all this at the moment, because I find once I draw my dash lines in, they're not easy to get hold of, with them being just literally a path line that's dashed. So you come to your path tool and you start, you have to zoom in again. You come to your path tool and you want to put a dash line here. So I'm going to start here, hold my shift key down, and I don't want to go past and I don't want to go right onto the line. I want to stop just before. And if you make sure your arrow is directly over your line, when you double click, it will anchor your line. If it's to the right or left of your line, when you double click, you'll get an extra node. So you'll have a node here and then a node next to it either side, depending on whether your arrow, your cursor point was right or left. If it's directly over the straight line, it should always just make one node at the top and one at the bottom. Then I'm going to go to Properties, Cut, and change it to a dash line. Now while it's selected, if you duplicate it, see sometimes it jumps about and it's hard to get hold of again now. So we could right click the box and see if we can send it to the back and see if that helps, but it doesn't always work. So what I find is select the box, and then the way I do it is I hold my shift key down and I use the 4 directional arrows on my keyboard, and I'm going to use the down arrow because I want to expose the top of this dash line here so I can grab hold of it. And if you hold the shift key down, when you use the down arrow, it makes the space that this box will jump down bigger than just doing it if you just hold the arrow on its own. So I count how many, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 and let go, and that's exposed that dash line. And see, I've got the crosshairs now so I can select it. So while it's selected and I've got the crosshairs, I right click and hit duplicate, and then I should be able to drag that one and place that one roughly in place there. Now I'm going to undo because I couldn't get hold of it again. What we need in Canvas, we need to be able to duplicate directly on top like we can in Inkscape. In Canvas, when we create a duplicate, it always offsets it a bit, which is a bit of a pain. But if I just try and select those two now and go Edit, Align, Top, and then I can just choose that one. And again, I'm just going to use the arrows on my keyboard, and I'm holding the shift key down so it's jumping a bit more. If I let the shift key down go and just do the arrows, you can see they only move a little bit. So to get it done a bit quicker, I'm going to move it over like that. Then I'm going to, while that's selected, hold my shift key down and wait for the crosshair to appear on this one and select that, and then I'm going to wait for the crosshair again to appear while they're both selected and group. Then I'm going to right click and duplicate, and I'm going to bring, oh, see, I didn't get them again. So I'm going to undo, select that one, right click and group. Then while they're selected, right click and duplicate, and just try and get hold of the duplicate, there it is, and bring it down. Oh, see, they're not easy to get hold of, these dash lines. They're a pain really. It's there somewhere. So I'm going to undo, and see if I can get hold of them again. No, see, every time I go to get them, they move. Right, I'm going to bring this down and position it. In fact, I'm going to position it so it overhangs the line, and then I can see roughly where I want it. And that looks about right, because I want this dash line to be kind of here. So I'm going to position it there. Now I'm going to use the up arrows on my keyboard just to bring it back into place. and then click away, and that looks not too bad. And then I'm going to come back to this one, and again I'm going to hold my shift key down and use the down arrow to bring that one back into place. And then I'm going to zoom out, and that's how you can make a box. And then because all these have been set as dash lines and the outside has been set as a cut line, when you click on these, if you just go back into your properties to make sure you have set them as dash lines, and then if you hit the undo button, it'll bring that all back together for you. Then you can grab everything, right click and group, and you've got yourself a box. So I know it's a bit long-winded with these dash lines in Canvas, but you know, we're getting there, and I think Brother R listening to us. But I hope you found that helpful, and that's just a way of how to create shapes from other shapes within the software. And basically all as I have used there are simple shapes and either the subtract command or the weld command. So I hope you found that helpful, and don't forget to subscribe if you don't do so already, and then you'll be kept informed of when I post future videos. There's also a link at the beginning of this video and in the description box underneath the video here on YouTube with a link to my blog. Again, if you follow me on there, you'll get information, email information when I post projects or cutting files. So I hope you found that helpful, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.